Surgites, quick news flash. We still got some openings for our Peak Performance tournament in Hilton Head next week. So if you're at all interested, get on the phone with Debbie Bragg. The number is on the screen here, and let's get you down there and playing a little golf with the Surge. So take care, good to see you.
Hello, Surge here from the Backyard Driving Range. Today I want to talk about a lesson I just recently had with one of my younger gentlemen who's a senior in college and playing on his golf team, and he's a very good player. And called me up coming home for a spring vacation, I guess, recently, and he said that he really wanted to see me. His swing was really good, he said, from tee to green, but the thing killing him is getting close to the green. And he said from 50 yards in with pitch shots, he was just getting hammered. He had a better chance of hitting the green with a 7, 6, or 5 iron than he did with a 50-yard pitching wedge. And so, I mean, that's a pretty serious stuff for anybody, especially a good player. And so he said, let's go work on shot game. So that really excited me because I don't get too many phone calls. As much as I stress being a short game wizard, I don't get many phone calls when people say, hey, I want to work on my short game. So I met him at where we teach over here, and he was already at the short game area practicing. Now the good thing about this is that I started talking to him and I said, all right, tell me what's happening. So he said, well, I tend to hit it fairly solid, but for the most part, I'd say from 30 yards in, from 50 to 30 yards in, until I get real close to the green, I'm missing the green. I'm missing it way to the right. And so if I got a right pin, I'm even missing it right over the green. He said I got a real probability that it's going to be that I'm hitting the ball way too far, or somehow, somewhere, from chunk to thin it or whatever, and come up short. So he says I got the whole thing. I don't know what's happening. So I said, okay, 50 yards in. So we walked off 50 yards from the flag out to there. We dropped some balls. So I had him say, take out his sand wedge, and so as soon as he's got his wedge in his hand, I said, okay, we got 4 flags on that green. Let's start with the real problem one, which will be the right pin. So he sets up to the right pin, and I'm going to use the camera as the pin. And I'm standing there, and I watch him set up to it and hit a ball, and sure enough, he misses it right. And set up again, and it's the same setup I see, misses it right again. And I let him hit about 5 or 6. And the setup was very consistent because that's what I want to see. I want to see the setup because remember, just like the long swing, from every club that you ever put in your hand, the setup determines the motion right to a putter. All right, setup is critical. How your body moves is predetermined by the position in which you place it to make the motion, which means you're setting your muscles to move. If your setup is incorrect, your muscles can't move correctly. Your body parts can't move correctly in the right way to move, as well as in many cases the right sequence of motion. So what did I see? All right, I saw that basically he got the big NC for that hitting that shot. And NC doesn't mean no charge. That means no chance. All right, because his setup was really, really, really all messed up. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is show you what goes on here is this. I'm going to use this one as the target line, okay? Aiming line, target line. In this case, it's the target line because we're trying to hit a relatively straight shot to the target. All right? We know that one needs to be parallel left if you're going to hit a normal straight shot, okay? But when we get into wedges, we could do what? We could start opening up our feet a little bit, okay? Now, he had 2 basic big problems as far as his feet go. The first one was, in standing in here, he was standing way too close to the ball. So in standing so close, when it came time to move in, his legs were in the way. So he was having to what? Spin out of the way faster to clear for his legs. All right? So he started opening up more to hopefully have his legs, out of the way. The brain will start figuring out things for you on how to have a chance of getting to the ball and hitting the ball. But remember, when your alignment gets messed up, the brain, your balance system and the brain, and trying to get you to move and swing and stay in balance, it doesn't really care about how you hit the ball and where you hit it. It just cares about that its job is to keep you balanced. So he had his feet way too close. He had his feet way too open. He actually had his feet about 60 to 70 yards left. But the other problem here was he also had his shoulders left. Okay? He had his feet left about 60 or 70 yards. He had his shoulders left about 30 or 40 yards. And of all things, that was the worst thing to be off, was he had his club face about 20 to 30 yards to the right. I mean, you talk about a menagerie of angles. So first thing I did is I got his feet back, got his weight in his arches. I got him to get a little open with his feet, and then we had to get the shoulders square at address, and we had to get the club face square to the target. Okay? And of all the things, the club face was the hardest one to get for him to start figuring out to do, because he'd gotten so used to looking at it open. Now, you'd say, why do the shoulders have to be square at address? Well, they have to be square at address because of the physiology of every time you swing your arms in front of your body, they cross at 12 o'clock, which means, and 6 o'clock, 12 and 6, which means if you have a good parallel neutral grip where the palms are perpendicular to the ground, perpendicular to torso, then they need to be perpendicular aiming line, they will return there every time. That's the secret of release. Okay? But you can only hit the ball straight if the club face is also square. So even if he got to the point where he now had square shoulders and hips, pretty much. Now the hips could possibly slightly be open, but the shoulders will pretty much be. If I come down to impact and hit that ball square at impact, my shoulders will be relatively square. My hips might be a little open. My feet my knees might be a little bit more open. But if I come in here and hit it square, if the club face is open and I come back to a perfect square shoulders at impact, the ball will start where the club face is aimed. Okay? So we had to get that going. And so that was the key. Now, many times, because we're using a small swing here, you might be able to get away with some bad setup procedures and bad alignment a little bit. But when you get two angles way crazy left, him being a right-hander, and the club face ridiculously right from 50 yards, basically you got no chance. The big NC. Okay? So as soon as we got his balance set up, his posture where he had his weight in his arches, got his ball position correct, got his feet slightly open, shoulders square at address, club face square at address, boom, boom. Next thing you know, he's hitting the greatest little shots in the world. Then all we had to work out on that after that was where he finished to would determine the flight he wanted of the ball going in there. If he needed more height to come down and sit down quicker, he would just like tossing a ball. If I want to toss it high, I'm going to what? I'm going to release it up there. If I want to toss it low, I'm going to release it here. A little bit higher there, a little bit higher there. And if I want to go really high, up. And so, boom. If you want to go up, you go there. If you want to just stand here and say like you're hitting a real low punch in there that you want to hit and run down there, you just come back and you release it over there. But you got to get these lines pretty good. So we got to keep the fact that the feet can be a little open, shoulders have to be squared in at address, and therefore and the club face has to be square so that when you return it back to the ball and to hit it, the club face is square because ball goes in a direction, the club face is aimed at the moment of impact. All right? And that's where we have on, square and solid. So let us not forget, if we want to be short game wizards, which we all should want to be, because in the end, nobody hits all 18 greens, and so therefore you have to start getting it up and down. And the best way to shoot lower scores is to become a short game wizard. You need to make sure that your angles are just as carefully aligned correctly as you are with a driver. Because there's really nothing more disappointing, frustrating, aggravating, and probably anger generating than missing a green with a sand wedge from 50, 40, or 30 yards because you blitzed it right at the green, right over the right side, or sculled it over the green. All right, so angles are important for everything, including your short game. All right, well, that's it for the Surge. Hopefully on some good news about things to check on if you're having problems with your short game to become a short game wizard. All right, well, that's it, and I'll be talking to y'all again soon.